Friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my horror-loving Google Glass final boy and co-host,
Alex Dandino.
That's the true horror. Remember when Google Glass was a thing? All right.
Truth.
Guys, if you love the show, and we hope that you do, please take a second right now, this second. Do it while you're listening. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you find the pod, especially if that happens to be Apple Podcast app. That helps us out enormously, guys. We appreciate that. You can see our faces as well as hear our voices on our YouTube channel, Nerd Alchemist, plural with an S at the end. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, with your ideas for movies, themes, guests, double features, new stuff you'd like to hear us talk about. Remember, every December, we stuff your stocking where we do listener picks. That's every single December, so good time to email the show, get in on that. And find us on all your social medias. Wherever you are, we're there too, and we'd love to talk to you. All right, that's enough for business. Guys, again, we return to the depths of the abyss, the black abyss of the horror genre.
Returning to Woodsboro.
Yeah, right? The deepest, darkest, actually, I mean, I guess the whitest part of the horror abyss, Woodsboro. Back again, as you guys know, every day this month, we will be releasing a horror movie because every October, Alex lets me get more and more insane. And this month I said, fuck it, I want to do one every day. So we are bringing...
And I said, fuck it, I'm in.
Yeah, right? He's the stew to my Billy. That's what I loves about you, boo. So here we are. Scream 4 today.
Woozy,
woozy, man. So many screams, I'm woozy. We're finishing up all of Scream. As you guys know, the really big one this month, every single Halloween movie, all of them. It's a lot. So yeah, we got horror movies coming constantly. We've got some guests. Stay tuned every single day this month. Stay with us for all the horror goodness. But again, let's wrap up here in Woodsboro. Although, as we know, while this may be a Scream make, as they call it, a Scream make, kind of a reboot of Scream, there is a Scream 5, which I don't know what's left to do. I'm assuming Scream 5 is going to be Sid lost in an art house horror movie. Like maybe like an Ari Aster style movie where, Sid's relatives start going, Hail Paimon! And I don't know what. Dewey's just over there like doing the tuck from Silence of the Lambs.
I'll tell you what's left is they have not had the opportunity yet to typeset a 5 into the name Scream. So that's definitely going to be the poster.
I'm glad the poster's already taken care of. Again, I think
You're welcome.
Highbrow, high art horror is the last untapped field for the Scream genre. I'll say this.
Yeah.
Even Scream 4, I felt like this one stumbled out the blocks a bit. But again, as is always the case with Scream, even things Scream does that don't seem like they're working are perfectly built in because of the story armor of the fact that they're taking a shot at horror. And this one I thought, because right off the bat, I was like, this is the worst opening in the Scream series. Like, this opening scene is long.
The meta opening?
It's not good.
Yes.
It's not fun. It's just, some girl gets stabbed, and they even make light of it. They're like, oh, 2 bimbos just deconstructing horror, gross. And then we just get another kind of quick one, and then we're in the teens. So it's like a three bad opening, quesarito.
It's like this weird, it's this really bad Inception opening we get. And like, we all know what's happening. Like, that's the thing that I love about, honestly, this is the thing I actually enjoyed the most about it. And I don't know if this is just because I'm used to Kevin Williamson writing at this point, but from the jump, I'm like, this is not the movie yet. Like, we have at least 2 more of these to go. And then, like, as soon as Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin show up on the couch, you're like, cool.
You're like,
still waiting for the movie to start. Copy that.
Because I don't know. I knew going in that they were tackling reboot culture. So, like, as soon as you see Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell, you're like, well, they're not in the reboot.
They're not part of this movie.
That's not going to be the thing. And then they get to the 2
Not only that, they do this, like, Dante and Randall back and forth about, like, what it is. I'm just like,
Well, we all have a friend who is essentially Anna Paquin in that moment. Who's just like, yeah, I'm gonna just shit on everything you like and try to use some $5 college words and be really cool. You know, I'm not gonna say that you're my Anna Paquin. I was gonna say I'm not gonna say that I haven't been drunk at many a bars fulfilling that exact role. Just to mix it up a bit. But yeah, if I had gotten stabbed, I'd have been like, fair play. Fair play.
We do it on the pod. We do it on the pod weekly. It says I don't even know what you're talking about.
How dare you? Anna Paquin's taking unprovoked haymakers. Although she did say one thing, and I was like, "Fuck, man, maybe I am an Anna Paquin." When she went after the Saw series, I was like, "Finally, girl, I'm here for you on that." But then we start.
You are Anna Paquin.
And it's just weird because I feel like Scream is so known for the opening scene. In this one, once we get to the third moment, it just didn't feel like it paid off for me. So you're already starting on Rocky Road, but again, I think this is kind of the point, right? Because we get to it later where we talk about these rules of a remake, right? Everything's more extreme. The rules are cliched and out the window, right? The unforeseen is the thing. And so there is a way where the opening scene being somewhat bland and not nearly as interesting as any Scream movie we've seen before somewhat plays as a critique on remake culture, right? Like, why are we just... I think it's weird, too, because Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven chose to put 3 openings back-to-back. I believe that's exactly the point they're going for.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the whole purpose of doing that is to say, hey, remember those other 3 movies we've done?
Yeah,
2,
right?
Technically. But gets to the other 3. You know these other 3 movies we did? You know what's going to come.
Yeah.
Like, do I even have to explain it to you guys? Like, I think that's the thing that I like the most about Scream 4 is that it's not about like the trick of like Randy giving us the rules. The trick is we already know the trick.
Yeah.
The trick is like trying to get us to not spend the entire movie. Like it's such a weird, like, again, it's like probably the tightest rope they've walked the entire time, which is like, how do I make this movie relevant for a new generation while also honoring what we've already done in 3 other movies, but at the same time still make it interesting for everyone who's coming out to see this 4th movie of a trilogy that we've already finished.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is the real issue with the movie. And it works and it doesn't work on a lot of occasions. And I think that as we get deeper, we'll find that there are some things that probably could work if they were actually done in a way that made sense, or at least were less millennial in some respects.
Oh no, here we are. We're like old man Dewey screaming at the ghost face decoration.
Sorry, it had to start that way, though.
I will say again,
this. It's such a fascinating...
Yeah, you cannot watch this movie and think that Sid Prescott can be rebooted or redone. Like, she is the fucking queen.
She's the ultimate.
The more we talk about this, I'm like, dude, her and Laurie Strode is so much closer than people give credit. But here's the thing that I found really funny, right? So I can't think of any other horror movies, many movies in general, where it's like, let's make the first 5 to 10 minutes of our movie intentionally not very good so that we can make a critique on the entire genre that brought our audience here in the first place, right? That is kind of the fun world that Scream lives in. It's one of those, totally. I don't know that it's that successful because, again, like, even Scream 2 and Scream 3, you get, like, Scream 2 has the great, like, wild movie theater hoopla opening, which is a critique on horror itself, but it's still doing a lot of fun work, right? Like, it's still kind of setting us up in a new adventure. This one just felt like they had something to say, but kind of like this whole movie, I don't know how much they land the critique. Because it's weird, it doesn't feel like a super modern horror movie, just set in Scream. It still feels like a Scream movie, just without his cutting of examination in a weird way.
I think that's interesting because to me, again, I like this one a lot. And
I like this one, and I think it wraps up really well. Like, it has a great, strong ending.
It does. I think it has a really strong ending. I think it's interesting because we're talking about, this is the first 10 minutes of the movie, and the first 10 minutes of this movie are very much about, like, quelling your expectations. And it's fascinating because I was watching it again, and I realized, like, the whole purpose of doing that, and like I wouldn't even say it's necessarily to point out the blandness of doing this. Like the blandness of doing 7 movies of the same series in a row. Because again, I'm admittedly not a big Saw fan. I think those movies are actually kind of dumb. And again, I don't understand why they're interesting.
See us next October for cool. the 15 Saw movies.
It'll happen. But like at the same time, I'm at the point now where the thing that I like the most about that introduction is not necessarily to point out the blandness of overdoing it, but more to point out that it's an awesome middle finger to the audience, which is like, you're here, aren't you? Like, you're the one sitting there watching this fucking thing. Like, if you had any respect for yourself, you would have walked out after you saw Stab 7.
Yeah.
And instead, you're still locked in because you want to know what I'm going to do. And I think that's the magic of Wes Craven. That's the magic of Kevin Williamson, is they're going to do this like hackneyed. Well,
they also
like this is literally
told the audience
this is
to
the
fuck
season
off.
finale.
Because they took...
Yeah, it's the Dallas season finale. It's the fuck off of all fuck offs.
The greatest moment in the Scream series, and I don't think you can argue it. The most memorable kill from the entire Scream series is the garage door. It's the fucking garage door. And what do they do in this one? Yeah. The girl's crawling away. The garage door gently touches her and goes back up. I was like, that is such a fuck
Which is 100% a middle finger to us, because all of us were wondering that at the same time.
It's awesome. That's what I love it, but that's what I'm saying. Scream has so earned your trust, and it's been so clever. And again, I don't think Scream 3 is particularly great, but even Scream 3, which is not great, as you would say, it still has these really fun, big ideas. And so I think the thing in this movie is I didn't really latch on to the new characters as much, because this movie walks kind of that new Star Wars trilogy issue where it's how much of the old stuff are we doing and how much are we truly setting this up for the future, right? And so I find myself as an audience member really locking into Gale and Dewey and Sid still. And when they show the kids, I'm just kind of like Gale in this movie. Like, fuck off. Like, I've been here for 3 movies. Fuck you. Do what I want. Be who I want you to be. And it's this weird... and again, this is the thing with Scream, is you always have to wonder what effect are they shooting for from us, right? Because to me, it's I never, ever, ever latch on to any of the new kids.
Right, and I think that's part of the point for me. And I thought, like, on this viewing, I thought the exact same thing. And I was really, just because now we've been locked in, like, an entire week of watching these movies. So I'm literally just sitting there just going like, yes, that. Yes, of course that. Yes. So now I'm we're on the 4th one, and I'm hyper analyzing the meta. I'm trying to figure out, is this part of the movie or is this part of the context? Like, is this the contextual narrative I'm supposed to be watching that is the movie to tell me what the meta of the scene actually is supposed to be? Like, there's like I said, there are just inception layers to this one where it's only because I'm sitting there having watched 3 of these already, knowing full well what I'm supposed to expect. So I a lot of the time felt like subverting expectation wasn't necessarily what they were trying to do. Because that scene where fucking, Google Glass kid and what are the names, like Robbie and whatever. Either way, Google Glass and the weirder Culkin are sitting in front of the class telling everybody like...
The definitely wielding a knife in this movie, Culkin.
The new rules, like they're doing the Randy bit. And again, it's one of those things where like, the whole thing now is to do the opposite of what people expect. And I'm like, okay, so Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven are saying what reboots or remakes are reboots and remakes are supposed to be about is doing the opposite of what people expect, the opposite of what has come before. Which is weird because this movie spends the entire time kind of almost repeating. But I also think that there's a lot of... The one thing that they said that really rang true was the viciousness of the violence in this one is so much more... The viciousness of the kills is that much more... It takes away a lot of the creativity that I think we're used to seeing in these movies. Like, some of the, like, hokiness, I would put it. Like, again, Jada Pinkett Smith's death in the very beginning of Scream 2 is probably one of like the kind of like better dramatic, like showy set piece kills in these movies. Besides, obviously, the garage door. This one, I mean, I would point to the garage door in this one too, where literally the girl, like, it doesn't work. He turns her over and just stabs the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Like, it's just brutally violent. It's brutally violent to the point where I'm almost like, wow, Scream's like going back to like being like a regular horror movie. Like, we're not even talking about, you know, the fun meta narrative of horror movies and what they do. This one is about, oh, we're just like killing people. Yeah. Everything is about just like a vicious kill.
Which is what
happened
happened
in the very beginning.
And was one of the critiques of a lot of the remakes, right? Because you had Rob Zombie's Halloween, Friday the 13th, Hills Have Eyes. There's a bunch of these, Nightmare on Elm Street especially took this, where they remade it and they took away a lot of kind of the fun genre layer that protects us from that and just made it fucking brutally violent. And this movie does feel like they've lost some of the showiness. You know, like that opening scene of Scream 1, right? You go back there, and it's the boyfriend's in the chair, he's getting sliced, and they're catching Drew Barrymore, they're running around, and then she's like gutted, right? Like Judas up in that tree in the front. You're like, that is like big, showy, elaborate. This is just like when they kill the young lady across the street, right? When he's like, I'm not in your closet. Just fucking stabbing the fuck out of, throwing her out of that window like she's just trash.
Stabbed the shit out of her.
And you're like, wow, this is...
Yeah. Like,
but you know what is the weird part about
vicious.
that? Is it makes it feel more personal, right? It's more of that kind of true crime vibe where you're like, oh, this... Like, they really want to hurt these people now. More than the other Screams. Right. What I latch onto a lot in this one, right, is, like, again, I think this is where Scream 3 should have been. I feel like Scream 3 did the best with what they could with Neve Campbell not really being on set very often, and they didn't want to go to Woodsboro, whatever. This feels like it feels like you couldn't have ended the Scream series without getting back to Woodsboro, right? And what I think
you have to go back to Woodsboro. This movie
found a way to do an extra fun riff on that, because again, I said in Scream 3, it's not my favorite, but I really like the haunted Sydney and like the haunted by her mother and the sins of the mother to her. I thought that was a really great riff, right? The giant hole that was blown in this girl's life by, you know, a decision her mother made that had this ripple effect. And again, I'm not here to blame her mother for having an affair. A lot of mothers have had affairs, and, you know, their sons didn't come to murder us. Like, that's not what I'm saying, okay? So, but just Sydney is this.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I mean, I know people are always like, oh, like, you know, I'm not a person that thinks Maureen Prescott should be slut-shamed like she is in all these movies. You know, we've seen her husband in 2 movies. Like, that wouldn't get me excited either. You know, newsflash. So you get onto this, Sydney coming and doing this, you know, I am rewriting my own chapter, right? I am not going to be the victim anymore. I'm trying to move on. It's very much with where we saw Sid. You know, they kind of had the Nightmare on Elm Street ending in Scream 3 where you're like, that can't be what's really happening in that house, right? Like, some ghosts, like, what are they doing? Why is the fucking McSteamy there with the popcorn? Like, what's happening? Right? So he left it very weird. This feels like a woman who's actually putting the pieces together now. And everything that happens around Sydney to me is fascinating, right? This throng of media, her publicist who's like, you're never going to believe it. It's the best thing ever. Like, 2 new bodies. Sid coming back home to try to exorcise the final demon. And then once again, this fucking curse, right? But above her cars, you know, the high school kids now just do pranks of this fucking ghost face and blah, blah, blah. And again, the way the people react to her in this movie is endlessly fascinating, right? Like when she Sydney, it's your fault. She's the angel of death. You know, it's
right.
That is what really does it for me in this movie, right?
Right. Well, it's something, I think the thing that I like, and again, this is a great subversion of what we saw in Scream 2, which is that it's like Sydney in Scream 2 even admitted, like, hey, you should stay. Like, she told Jerry O'Connell, like, she should stay away from me. Like, you're going to wind up dead. And it's fascinating because it's like she shed that skin by Scream 4. And yet now the world is telling her, hey, everything you thought about yourself, totally true. You are a horrible, horrible, horrible murder person, and you will get everyone around you killed. Like, that is what I think is great about subverting and like changing the narrative a little bit, is that Sydney's no longer sort of the, it's fascinating. Like, she's no longer the like final girl victim. Like, you're not willing to give her that title anymore. And again, that's another great critique on the genre itself, is that Sydney in this movie is in her 30s. She's not, some nubile 18-year-old getting chased around the house. She's not a Laurie Strode anymore. Now she's basically Laurie Strode in the new Halloween. Like, she's an older woman.
Well, now we've seen this
and
go
she gets
on,
painted
right?
in that way. Yeah, she's getting painted that way in a way, and and it's, again, it's a really smart, subtle way to say, like, hey, isn't this fucked up that like we spent 3 movies cheering for this woman to survive, and now everyone in Woodsboro is like, you fucking monster, I know you did.
Right, but that's how
that
everyone
to me
looks
is a
at
great
her.
bit.
Yeah, and the way they project that shit on her is that she wants to rewrite her own narrative, and that whoever so chooses, right? Any human being can put that mask on and take her fucking narrative away again. Is this
right?
It adds this extra curse element to Canix. Again, I said that I think Ghostface is ranked way lower on, the best bad guy killers, because Ghostface has been 8 people at this point, right? We always do it in 2s for the or wait, Scream 3 was just 1, but you know what I mean? We're always doing a number of these things, and it's, multiple people. But what is cool is if you look at the mask itself, and it becomes this fucking vessel for everyone's, dark wishes, right? That becomes really fun to grapple with Sid. And again, she comes to her hometown, and it all fucking starts again, right? Like, one of the scenes that really landed for me was her aunt, right? When, they were making fun of Sid, like, oh, she's probably got so much scar tissue. Like, she's beautiful, but under her dress, she probably is all mangled and shit. You're like, wow, that's really catty, horrible thing to say. But then the aunt is like, well, I've got scars too. That was no one asked me about my scars. And this fucking neediness of people who are envious of her for what we've seen her go through for 4 movies. The envy, the jealousy, the hating her, because it's very insidious, and it's an awesome extra layer to spend time with Sydney and just watch her, right? Because in Scream 3, she is now isolated alone in the woods. She comes back, and at the end, we're back in the woods. This is her going right back into the fucking, maw of where this started. And as the bad things happen, you don't see this Sydney, you don't get that moment, right, that you got in Scream 2. Where Jerry O'Connell gets attacked, and it's a slow push in on Sid's face where it's, oh my God, this is going to be my life. Now she's here, right? Like, now when Anthony Anderson runs in after that girl gets slaughtered, Sid's like, I'm fine, you might want to look upstairs. She's just, this is her reality, right? And she's trying to rewrite it, but she knows. And so that's a really fun time to spend in this movie for me.
I agree. I mean, I think that's what makes this movie the most watchable, is particularly because we're getting to spend a lot of time with Sydney that we didn't get to spend with her in Scream 3, for one. Like, I think we're making up for lost time, particularly, but also we have to carry on this story with her, because she's the one who's going to tell us where the rewrites are coming. Where the reboot is actually going to be rebooted. And I think that's the thing that I like the most. It's the first time I've felt since, honestly, the first Scream that she's really honed in on being the narrator of her own story. And really, like, it's the first time we've gotten to see everything through her lens. Scream 3, obviously, we spent a lot more time with Dewey and Gale. And Scream 2 is a little bit more reactionary. This is the first time in a long time that we've gotten to just see her be in charge of the lens, so to speak.
Yeah. And even
I
reboot Sydney, right? Her
I really enjoyed
cousin,
hovering
over. We don't
over
do a
that.
lot with her, right? Like, she's not the vehicle like Sydney was before. But yeah, I mean, I even like you said, right? Spending time with Gale and Dewey in this one is fascinating. Now Dewey's become this grizzled old veteran, right? And Sheriff Judy, who's constantly trying to, skis on him. I thought that was hilarious. But she's like, I wish I was there, the first time when you solved those cases. And it's like even Dewey is this mythologized like hero now. And Gail's like
right.
Now I'm a fiction writer, small town wife. In the moment there's dead kids, she's like, get my purple suit. It's time to Gail. And I was like, I love the scumbagness of Gail in this one, right? Like, there's just something great about her, right? When the publicist is talking and she's, I'll fucking rearrange your face. She's like, I still got it. And I was like, I love that after 4 movies, Gail still has not learned a single lesson and just a tad of writer's block.
I'm sorry.
In what must be a, portfolio of millions of dollars. She's still just like ecstatic there's dead teens and like she can fucking get in on this. I love that Gail has refused to learn anything.
Yeah. Speaking of that, though, and by the way, you and I both talked about this before the pod. We need to address this right now. How are Gail and Dewey still alive? Like, this is the most shocking thing of all.
Not only how are they still alive when Dewey essentially has had a kill shot in like every movie where Dewey should be dead. And he just keeps talking about being scarred and mangled, right?
At least 3 times.
No, Dewey's looking like fucking the Elephant Man's back under there. He's got to be just twisted and stabbed, and it's got to be a horror show under there. Even though they made it this far, the fact that Dewey and Gail made it through this movie alive felt so fucking insulting. Because I was like, this is supposed to be the reboot, and I guess the argument would be is that by the end of the movie, they make it very clear that they think reboots suck. I think Sid's exact line is, you forgot the most important rule, don't fuck with the original, as she just cold-bloodedly murders again. Yeah. Sydney might actually have the highest body count of most of these ghost faces. But they just clearly make it a thing they don't want to reboot. So the movie's telling us it's the reboot. We're moving into the next phase. And then at the end of the movie, we're just left with Doofy and Gail and Sid. Again. That's why I think part 5 has to be them like in an old person's like community doing like an Ari Aster art house horror where like they are forced to relive the sins of their...
maybe there could be... I think the real crime is that P. Demps did not. McDreamy did not get to make an appearance in Scream 4.
Yeah, he's out.
He had the fucking popcorn at the end of Scream 3. He's out.
Yeah, his popcorn making skills are in better uses, right? He's out tough talking more witnesses in Hollywood cases.
Again, I can't believe Dewey and Gail make it through this entire Dewey alone should have died after the second one. But like he has been
does this not fall into the rules,
stabbed.
Right? Where they want to do the opposite? Because if you lay it out, this is one of those where I realized in this one I don't
think so, man.
Like Scream 2 is amazing because the whodunit aspect of that movie is really fun, right?
Yeah.
And Scream 3 gets a little more Scooby-Doo, like, if only your gimpy-ass sheriff and you weren't here, like I'd have gotten away with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little, okay.
Totally.
But it's still fun. This one, I never really felt engaged in who was Ghostface. And it is weird because it's like,
I think that's the really fascinating thing about this movie.
Yeah, we're spending time with our characters we like, and there's just a movie happening in the background. But like, I never latched on.
I think
they did, because this is the thing, by letting Doofy, because I was like, Doofy's number 1 to die. Gail would be number 2.
Doofy.
Sydney would be humongous. If they killed Sydney, that would be a real power move. Because I still maintain I don't think you can ever make a Scream movie without Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. But that would have been the power move if they really believed in this, right? And so that's the 3 you think would die. And then at the end, for the killer to be new Sid and new Randy is so spot on, right? The kid who knows too much about horror movies is influenced. It's like they already kind of did that with Oliphant. Like Jamie Kennedy was definitely one of the suspects in the first. And you're like, oh, so we are doing that. Finally, we're paying off that Randy is actually like the murderer. So it's like so on the nose that it almost becomes not what we expect. Because again, by part 3, it's just like insane. I'm the love child of your mom who was in like 2 John Wayne movies, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm directing, and it's like insane, right? And so this one is just like, it's right there. It's very obvious right there, right? They do give you no clues, I think, to Emma Roberts, right? Like, they do a pretty good job of just shoehorning her in at the end. But, like, the Culkin kid, come on.
It's pretty obvious.
You're like, they're not doing New Billy because he can't even deliver a line.
Well, again, if you're going to make someone look like Billy in a movie, obviously I'm going to think that guy's the killer. Like, it's a foregone conclusion. But, again, you touched on something earlier. Like, it's the subversion of expectation that runs throughout the movie. And it's not even the fact of, like, it's not even the rules thing. Like, it's just, I spent the entire movie just wanting to be with the characters I love. And yeah, I like the way you put it, though. It's like this movie's happening in the background while we watch Sidney Prescott live her life.
Yeah.
We finally get to see what it's actually like for Sidney. Because throughout the entire time that we watch these movies, everyone is sort of speculating on what Sidney's actually going through. The only time we ever really get a chance to see what she actually goes through is when we meet her in Scream 3, where she's like a shut-in in Northern California, Napa Valley. On like the most palatial ranch property she could come up with, by the way.
She got that woods. She's got that stab money, dude.
Got that stab money?
She's like, I got my stab 4 check, and then I'm going to sue your ass. That's how this movie started.
But that's like the fascinating thing to me about this movie particularly is that I finally get to spend so much time with Sidney and go through her story and go through the hoops. It's fascinating because she herself is so bored with it.
Yeah.
That I think is so cool.
Yeah.
And that is something that I really love about the way Kevin Williamson decided to craft this version of the characters. Like, she's bored with it. She's been with this forever. Why does she have to do this again? Why does she have to keep going through it? And I think that's what's fascinating is like, that's what's interesting to me about the ending particularly is because, yeah, she fucking murders her, her niece, I guess? Is it her niece or second niece or something like that?
No, her cousin.
Murders her and cousin, sorry. Wait, so is it the aunt? It's Aunt Kate,
Aunt
right?
Kate is the one who got stabbed through the door.
Aunt Kate, okay, cool. Right. Sorry, yeah, that's right. I mean, what's fascinating to me is that she murders her cousin in cold blood. And you could make the argument that it would be because she doesn't want anyone else to be the final girl, but I would say more of the argument, it's because she's the only one who can handle it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great assertion of what the final girl really is. And I think that's the thing I like the most about Scream 4 is that Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott asserts herself in a way that makes her not just a final girl, but the final girl. Like, she's like, I will not be intimidated by the 4th time this has happened.
Right.
Watch me come at you.
Well,
like,
it also
if you want to
separates.
think that you can, like, if you think you can do this, if you think you can put this on yourself, that's the thing I like the most is really what that is she's saying, if you think you can take this, if you can put this on yourself, you have no fucking idea what I've been through. You have no idea how to do this the way I do it. It's almost like Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven coming back in and being like, listen, you guys can do all these fucking sequels and all these ripoffs all you want. If you want to see how people do this, watch us do it.
Yeah.
There is like sort of that.
I mean, I would even take it one step further than that, right? Which is Sidney so desperately doesn't want to be the final girl. But fate has always chosen her. Sidney's one of the only girls who isn't chasing it, right? Like, there's even a little bit of Laurie Strode at times feels like she's hunting Michael. Especially in the new Halloween, right? They really play with that.
Especially in the new one.
Like, she's ready to
100% the
get
new
it.
one.
And older Sidney, she's not like a grandma or whatever. But older Sidney just kind 32. Of is doing that, like, I just want to move on. She tells Emma Roberts at one point, she's like, I hope you never have to find out if you're brave enough. But it's one of those, like, that really struck me, that scene, too, when their friend's getting murdered and they're just watching helpless. And Sid's like, it's almost like she's like the Michael Scott autobiography. Here I go again. And she, like, runs across the street to, like, go fight, like, another young Ghostface. And she's like, God damn it. And like she's still got the moves and shit, but you can just tell she's like, God, come on. What? Come on. And and when she tries to talk to Emma Roberts, right? And she's like, hey, I actually do know what you're going through. I'm sorry. I think that is Sydney in one of the rare moments in the entire series saying, hey, you may be able to actually understand me for who I am. Right? Because that's one of the things we lose after Scream 1. Sydney is never truly understood by anyone again, right? They're all kind of people that know her as Victim Sid. And so that's hard to swallow. So the idea of, she doesn't want it, but her niece so desperately wants it. Again, this pining for, I don't want to work. I want to be famous. I want to be like you. I want to have 15 minutes, and she's just like, you're going to slip up. They always do. Like, she knows the inevitability factor of, bitch, this is mine. It's my curse. Like, do what you got to do, right? And the desperation of watching Emma Roberts' only active moment is fucking attacking herself, right? We watch this horrendous, Fight Club style, staging the scene while Sydney lays there. And the beautiful shot in that sequence is when she goes and tries to mirror how Sydney even lays. And I was like, that is amazing. I love that fucking moment. Love that.
Yeah. Again, it's just such a great, that particularly in those moments, particularly at the hospital.
Yeah.
That stuff is so great because it's the proliferation of the remake, the reboot movement. It's literally them being like, all right, how did they do this? All right, that's pretty good. Like, it's a filmmaker watching someone like Wes Craven make a movie and being like, all right, I'm taking notes. That's good. Yeah, I like that. I'm not going to do that, though. That's almost what it feels like a lot of the time. And it's again, that's the whole point of the Scream series a lot, is taking what you know and not necessarily brandishing it in front of you, but also just telling you, like, we know you know this. You don't need to be told what's going on again. What we're going to do is just do it and let you run with it, because this isn't supposed to be a horror movie. This isn't a slasher movie. People get slashed, but this is really ultimately a whodunit. And what we want you to do is focus on the mystery of whodunit rather than the mystery of who got stabbed. We all know who got stabbed. We watched that already. Find out. Try and keep up with
Keep up in these Louboutins.
That's how I always feel.
That's something I heard on TikTok. It's cool. Don't worry. We're getting a lot of younger viewers after they heard that. It's fine. No, I think that... Don't mock my hipness. I'm like old Sid trying to hang out with the young kids at Cinema Club. No, what I like about that final scene is there's a scene even in the bed, right? She does slip up, of course, because she knows where Gail got, stabbed. But that moment when she's like, we're all survivors now. If I write a book, I'd write it with Gail. You're like, that is so different than Sydney, who for 2 movies is like, I will fucking knock you out, Gail. Fuck off. Just that little subtle difference tells you that she's not worthy of being a Sid. On top of all the shit we just watched, that's pretty fucking horrible. And somehow, like, part of her forensics is like, oh, I'll shoot this non-moving body in the dick, and, like, that forensically won't matter. You know what I mean? Like, because this movie came out in 2011, and I was like, there's definitely forensics now, right? Like, you watch, like, Scream 1, you're like, all right, maybe they can wipe fucking Stu's Cosby sweater on it, and they'll figure it out. But I was like, we have forensics now. Like, this is 2011, bitch. Like, you're firing the gun, you be stabbing, and then just wiping the handle half-assed. Like, come on. You shot the dick. That's going to give you away. Right? And I was like, I know it's Sheriff Doofy's town, so, like, he's not, like, a case cracker. But for the love of God. But I actually like that a little more, because it makes that Sheriff Doofy. It makes the media part of the ending so much cooler. That when the inside is so very clearly, easily a stage fucking scene in a town where they've already seen that they just immediately swarm her and they're like, oh, you're the new girl, blah, blah, blah. That really works, right? And her kind of half a smile, like, oh, this was worth it. It's repulsive, right? So when she's in the hospital and just lashing out violently, again, it's one of those, she knows for a fact she can't get away with it, but she's still willing to just hash it out. Like, because now she won't get away with it and be the final girl, but now she can become infamous, right? Now she can be a Netflix 3-part documentary on what went wrong, right? Get interviewed in prison like a tough guy or a tough gal. And so there is this coolness to that, right? And then as we see it all go awry, we cut outside and the media still fucking singing her praises. I think that part is really awesome about the ending, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the poignancy of, I mean, and it's probably more to the point what's happened, I mean, by 2011, and obviously now, particularly, not just social media, but the media in general are so culpable in shaping the narrative. So to me, that's what's so great about that ending is that it's still about the shaping of the narrative. Mm-hmm. Like, at the end of Scream 1, you have Gale Weathers shaping her narrative. And you see what narrative she decided to shape going into Scream 2. Scream 4, it's not just a Gale Weathers. It's not some, like, plucky local camera person and some plucky reporter trying to figure things out. It's literally everybody is on this fucking story.
Well, they even say it, too, right?
You don't
this time, he's directing the movie. As in Ghostface, which is kind of a fun new... it felt a little derivative of Scream 3 where it's literally a director, right? But that part when he's like, I got great footage of murdering these girls. Like, Hayden Panettiere, I think that's how you say her name. She was going to sleep with that guy, and because he got blocked, he's like, yeah, I'm going to murder and get dope footage of it. You're like, yeah, this is insidious. Like, that works, right? And I like that notion of just wanting to be famous and not understanding that Sydney didn't want to be famous, and that's why she is in a way, right? Like, that's why these psychopaths are drawn to her, is because she's not calling them forth, right? Like, if you're doing a possession movie and you have a demon summoner, this and that doesn't work as much as Linda Blair stuck in that bed, this innocent girl who just gets besieged, right? And this girl, all of these psychos are coming to try to take Sydney's story and herself and, like, take that from her. And they can't. She doesn't want it. She's not calling them forth, so she has a power versus them. And I think that's what this movie does. It adds those extra fun layers to the canon of those three. Again, Doofy not being dead is just insane. Right? Like, one of those two's gots to die. To me, that's your hard open for Scream 5. Is you just have now very old Doofy, Gale, and Sid, and they're just like sitting on a couch arguing over like who's gonna pay the tip on their delivery pizza, whatever old people do, and then they all just get got, right? Like, all of them get got by like Toni Collette spidering on the ceiling, and you're like, yeah, bitch, now we're in for some screaming. Because I was just like, also I like that this movie continued one of my favorite things in the movie, which is the wild animalistic reaction to any human eye that witnesses a Stab film. Like, they play Stab 1 in the barn and kids are just... I was like, yeah, baby, I like that. It gives it that thing that Billy Graham was scared of in The Exorcist, where it's like, the ghost is in the film. You got to exercise the film strips. I like that that's now built into the Scream game.
It's just built into the general audience now. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely what's Doofy or Gale have to be killed at the beginning of Scream 5 for me to even think that that's going to go down the way.
I've got your murder, right? Doofy's going to come home with lemon bars, and Gale's going to be like, I've been dealing with this shit for 20 years, and just fucking shank his ass. How much trouble would you be in if you had an underling, right? She's a deputy, right? But he's a pretty good boss, right? Like, let's say an underling coworker who is constantly like coming on to you and sending you home with baked goods.
Deep shit.
Yeah, I was like, Doofy's playing it.
Deep shit.
Like, I don't think Doofy's worried about cheating on his diet. I think he knows Gale's going to fucking Woodsboro murder him.
Doofy's being a little fast and loose. That's what he's doing. I mean, he's playing it way too fast.
I'm just saying, like, he wakes up in the morning, she doesn't even flinch, dude. Judy is just over there like, "Pow, what's up? I'm here with lemon bars." I'm just saying there many a man do not have the fortitude of Doofy and have fallen to a Judy.
Right.
Right? Like I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. I think the thing that I like the most about Scream 4 is that while it starts in this really weird sort of not particularly interesting meta way, because you know what's happening. From the jump, you know what's going on. To get to that ending, though, which says a lot about not just... It does a good job of saying exactly what all Scream movies say at the end, which is what it says about the movie itself, but then it literally just... It's a mirror to the audience being like, why are you still here? Like, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Especially when it's like, oh, you thought we remaking this? Fuck you. You're going to be in that retirement home with Doofy. It's this brilliant, like, you're part of the problem thing that the Scream movies do a lot of the time that I really enjoy because, again, like, I'm not going to not watch it. But, again... No, when Scream 5 comes out, we will be covering it. We love Scream. But that's... Absolutely. If you had to sum it up, though, what makes this one a worthy standalone on its own? Right? Because I feel like I can give you, like, the one sentence about all of them, right? Scream was... groundbreaking meta examination. Scream 2, insanely good whodunit. It kind of added the curse element, right? Like the random mutated mind. Scream 3 was, new settings, Scooby-Doo fun. Scream 4, I have a harder time finding what was the thing, right? Because it continues solidifying the curse.
I think for me, Scream 4 boils down to I finally got the story I wanted about Sydney.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, we finally got the point. What we finally got to do was spend time with our final girl and her prove why she's that person. Like, she's proved it multiple times. But what we finally get to do is sit with a character for a long enough time to not have to deal with other people's opinions about her, for one. Because, again, like, you're right, up through Scream 3, everyone's like, oh, Sydney's a victim. Oh, Sydney's a victim. All this shit. What we finally get to do in this movie is see Sydney for who she really is, which is someone who isn't a victim. Like, she's a victim, obviously, just in name, but she's someone who's dealt with this for her entire life, practically. So now it's old hat. She's tired of it. And the reluctance of being the final girl is the thing that makes her the most impressive. So for me, the one-word answer for why Scream 4 is a great one-off, a great Scream movie in general, is that it's the examination of Sidney Prescott we always asked for, and then we got.
Yeah, I think that's what I take away is this one is really fun to watch Sydney after she tries to, change her victim narrative, as she calls it. And just watch the way that people won't let that happen, right? And not just the maniacs that put on the ghost face mask, but just random passerbys on the street. It's as if no one ever wants this girl to be happy. And she is just this fucking plaything for our amusement, right? And it's really solidified in this. And she plays this just strength, right? Of, all right, I'm never going to stop being the original girl, but I'm still the baddest, right? Don't fuck with the original. All right, to wrap up here, I'm going to give you a list, right, of remakes or part 4 in a series. And if you've seen them, rate Scream against them. Because I wonder, I don't know if I would call this a reboot as much as a part 4, right? Because, like, if you compare this to the Evil Dead reboot, I don't think that's a fair test, right?
No, that's like comparing apples and a bunch of
blood.
Right?
So... All right, Friday the 13th part 4 was the final chapter. That's Corey Feldman, the makeup artist. Jason's head sliding down the machete. That or Scream 4?
Scream 4.
Oh, see, I'm going Friday on that one. All right. Halloween 4 is the return of Michael Myers. We're starting the curse with his niece. What do you got? Scream 4 or Halloween 4? See, I'm going Scream 4 on that one. I think Halloween 4 and 5 are not my faves. But we'll be getting to that soon. All right, what else do we got? Nightmare on Elm Street 4. This is post-Dream Warriors. We're kind of like starting the new cast with the old. This is when she gets Dream Mastery, if I remember right.
Yeah, I'd go Scream.
See, I love that dude. She would do anything, karate, headband, Alice. Yes, yeah.
I love Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors is probably the pinnacle of that series. I'm trying to think. Phantasm 4, Hellraiser 4, Scream is way better. Now Leprechaun,
Scream's way better.
I'm remiss in saying I can't remember if Leprechaun 4 is Space or In the Hood.
I believe it's.
I think it's In the Hood too, and I would say I think Leprechaun In the Hood is better than Scream 4. I'm not trying to be bombastic, but it's
I'm not trying to be contrarian, but solely for the bathroom scene where he smokes weed with is it Ice-T?
Ice-T plays the gangster in that one.
That scene alone could just that's the capper on it. Just
and if it's Leprechaun in space, that to me is like that's my favorite Leprechaun movie. Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. I think this ranks really well amongst part 4s, right?
I think it is too.
I think it's like maybe 3 part 4s of it. I mean, once you get to part 4 in horror movie series, I think it's better than Final Destination 4. Once you get to part 4, you're running on steam. And I think Scream 4 has a little of that. It feels derivative, and why are we pushing this reboot thing, but you clearly don't want to reboot.
Right.
But it's still very fascinating throughout.
I think the benefit of Scream movies being what they are is that you don't have to... The meta narrative that you get from them, what you don't have to do is focus on... like, to me, like for Friday the 13th, for Nightmare on Elm Street, like you have to focus a lot more on the character himself. Like, you have to focus a lot more on Jason. You have to focus a lot more on Freddy. Like that examination of that character particularly. What's great about Scream and why those movies can endure is because what you do is you focus on the movie itself. You focus on the actual making of the movie itself and what it actually is doing. The plot itself unfolding is what is interesting about the movie. And I think a lot of the time, particularly when you get to the 4th movie in horror series, like you said, you are running on steam, but you're also really banking on your guy. You're really banking on your character to like take you through. And I think particularly I'd say the Nightmare on Elm Street series, that's what you lean on a lot of the time. So Scream works really well because what we're banking on is the story, and that's always going to get me to go to the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're ranking horror movie series, right, Scream doesn't have as many entries, but I think of the more modern, right? So if you take out movies that started in the 80s, right, and just go 90s on series, I like this so much better than Final Destination, Saw, any of those big horror movie series that came after. You know, kind of this 80s explosion of we're going to do all these movies. I think Scream is the preeminent modern franchise, right? I think now you would say the Conjuring universe is going to be getting into that territory, but I think at least half of those are not worth discussing. Let's put it that way. So that's where examining Scream is so fun, because I think often we forget how impressive it is that they made 4 movies this fucking good.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately the reason Scream endures is because it came along in a time where we were getting saturated. And what it did was it took a step back and said, let's talk about that. And I think that's the thing that Scream always does, is it waits for a moment. And I think that's why Scream 2 is so good, because instead of waiting back for a moment, it instead just makes a great sequel. Scream 3 sat back, waited for a moment, and almost parodied itself. And now Scream 4 had the opportunity to really sit back and say, what's going to happen in the next 10 years of this business, of this genre? And then they were able to do that too. That's why we get another one in 2021 or 2022, whenever it comes out, because we now have had another 10 years, so we're sitting back and we're watching people like Ari Aster and Jordan Peele put out really intense, highbrow,
sitting ghost face,
think to yourself
eating
after you
lobster
walk
and
out of
farting
the
on
movie.
each other in the lighthouse. That's part 5.
You know what, man?
I'd watch it.
I'm
I'd be
down.
stoked. Yeah. No, I think that's the fun thing, is that it is both a love letter and a fucking kick in the ass to the horror community. Which is, hey, we love this shit as much as you. Let's dissect it, this and that. But also, hey, man, expect a little more. Like, you know what's happening to you. Come on.
Yeah.
And I think it will always be fun for the teenager who's really like discovering horror, and he's like, oh, I know this shit now. To turn that movie on and just be like, oh yeah, like Randy's doing what I do with my. I think it will always be enduring in that way, and Ghostface can always be your most hated enemy and the thing that you're most afraid of at the time. And Sid is, you know, in the pantheon, like in the top 3, 4. I mean, I would say it's like just her and Laurie Strode as the best final girls ever. So yeah, I mean, starting the horror movie month off with Scream, unless you count Candyman, which we just did. Go back and download. What a great way to start off horror month. I fucking adore Scream. I'm glad we got to do this. Again, guys, we got a lot of cool horror movies, some one-offs. Obviously, all the Evil Dead movies, all the Halloween movies coming as well. So stay tuned, guys. I know it's a lot this month, but we do appreciate you giving us the space to work and do this many horror movies. It means a lot to me because I fucking love horror movies, man, as much as
I hope you guys enjoy this as much as we do. This is a great month to do this podcast, and I always enjoy it. I'm glad we've started this tradition of just overloading October because it's so much fun.
This is what I'm saying, right? You could say Christmas, but I call poppycock because most Christmas movies aren't good. There is no time that it is better to be a movie fan to me than when that calendar flips to October 1st and you're like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. Horror movie marathons, all-nighters. You know, you get excited. Like, when I was a kid before streaming, you'd be like, what's AMC showing? And, like, you know, you're trying to, like, write out in notepads, like, what you're going to watch when. And so I've always just had this. This is, you know, like, this is my Christmas and all my holidays rolled into one. I love October, and I love doing all these horror movies, guys. So that's what we're doing. As always, take a second and leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Nerd Alchemist. That's plural with an S at the end. You can email us, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, with your ideas on movies you'd like to hear us talk about, double features, guests, all that good stuff. Find us on all your social medias and tell your friends, guys. Tell your friends and prepare the endless dark abyss of horror. Like James Cameron, we're going to keep trying to go as deep as we can. We're going to keep going down and down and down. Try to find that bottom there.
Oh yeah, we're going to find that. We're going to find that Randy Newman.
Yeah, we're going to try, guys. So yeah, another horror movie tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. Like Sid, we constantly wake up in a nightmare every day. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Danty.
That's Stu. That's his real name. He's a stew.
Get a little woozy here.